Poynter. We're going to do this first before we end it. People, if you find it hard to follow me sometimes, welcome to my world. The legitimacy of the January 6th committee explained. You know what's amazing? Let me just make sure that this is the right article. Okay. You know what's amazing? When the headline and begs the question, the legitimacy of the January 6th committee explained? No, the legitimacy of the January 6th committee is in question. But the headline shuts you up from the get-go. The legitimacy is there. Let's just explain it. Okay. Let's see how well Poynter, and yes, I know what the Poynter. It's the Poynter Institute, founded by Brian Stetler. The Poynter Institute. I know what it is. It's politically motivated. I'm surprised they said critics and not conspiracy theorists, argue that the House committee investigating Jan 6 is illegitimate, but it has withstood legal challenges against it. Hey, you want to read between the lines here, people? This is where you have to have a neurotic, I won't say paranoid, but critical mind. Critics argue that the House committee investigating Jan 6 is illegitimate, but it has withstood legal challenges against it. Did those legal challenges, we'll find out, question the legitimacy of the committee, or did it adjudicate on issues brought before the committee? I don't know the answer yet, but that's a question people need to have in their minds. It has withstood challenges against it. Those don't necessarily mean challenges questioning its legitimacy. Those could mean challenges such as, do they have the right, or is this subpoena legitimate? Which raises interesting questions. But let's just see what the article has to say. Critics argue that the House committee investigating the events of January 6, 2021 is illegitimate, amounting to a political hit job by Democrats and anti-Trump Republicans rather than a sober-minded quest to prevent disorder. Anybody who has watched the first 4 or 5, I don't know how many days we're up to of the January 6th committee hearings, anybody who has watched any portion of that would know that we are not in the realm of a sober-minded quest to prevent disorder. We are in an alcohol-fueled state of inebriation, intoxication, political intoxication, not to prevent disorder, to prevent Trump from ever being able to run again. It's not sober-minded. It is politically intoxicated, frat party level madness. But yeah, thanks for telling it. It's, by the way, people, just so you know, it's a sober-minded quest to prevent disorder. And if you think otherwise, if you think it's a political witch hunt, you're dumb. You should read Poynter and understand the error in your ways. Anybody who watched that committee knows that it is, I was going to say something really bad. Kabuki theater. Oh my goodness. Another thing that I might have learned. No, I knew of that word from a long time ago. Kabuki theater. Kabuki, which can easily be inverted and mean something much, much worse. Despite the criticism, the committee has withstood legal challenges against it. We'll see what those challenges were, and experts expect the committee will complete its work. Nice. What is the legal justification for the committee of this sort? Okay, so let's just read what they have to say. The Constitution does not explicitly mention congressional investigations or oversight, but the courts have consistently upheld Congress's right to undertake such activities. Let's just see if it specifies that it should be strictly limited to legislative purposes. Let's just see. Stemming from the text that says Congress possesses all legislative powers. Is this committee pertaining to legislative powers? Yeah. One of the framers of the Constitution, George Mason, said during its drafting that members of Congress are not only legislators, but they possess inquisitorial powers for legislative purposes. Is what is going on with January 6th legislative, or absolutely beyond legislative, political, and arguably even inquisitory? Oh, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so how is the January 6th investigation different from previous ones? My answer is really isn't. Oh, that's nice. Okay. A lawyer said, okay. How did it come to be? Let's just see where the criticism is. We don't want to go through all of this. Here, on June 30th, 2021, the House approved creation of the Select Committee to investigate the Jan 6 attack on the United States Capitol. Anybody who's read the resolution where they refer to it multiple times as an act of domestic terrorism, despite all evidence to the contrary, and despite the FBI itself confirming scant evidence of any insurrection. The gratuitous and excessive use of the term domestic act of terrorism in the House Resolution Committee could lead you to believe it has nothing to do with legislative purposes and is not sober by any means. The resolution passed 222, yada, yada, yada. Under the resolution, the Speaker shall appoint 13 members to the Select Committee, 5 of whom shall be appointed after consultation with the Minority Leader. But this is where matters get even more convoluted. Oh, convoluted or problematic? This is where matters get even more convoluted. McCarthy presented Pelosi with a slate of 5 nominees to the panel. Pelosi responded that she had no quarrel with 3 of them. Oh, the committee accepts what you shall propose, but it doesn't like the other 2. But this is, legit. Pelosi responded that she had no quarrel with 3 of them. Okay, yada, 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 yada. But she drew a line at 2 of McCarthy's picks. Oh, she drew a line at the bipartisan nature of this committee. Indiana Rep. Jim Banks, who was tapped for the panel's ranking member slot, and Ohio Rep. Jim Jordan. Why? These are 2 decent people, politically speaking. Pelosi maintained that Banks and Jordan were too closely tied to Trump to help carry out a credible investigation. If they're tied to Trump, such that they're excluded, should not others be excluded because they're tied to anti-Trump? I mean, no. So she's picking the ones that she thinks are going to do the job that she wants them to do on this bipartisan committee. Okay. After she rejected the 2 of them, McCarthy retracted all 5 of his nominations, including the 3 Pelosi said she'd accept. Okay. Speaker Pelosi has taken the unprecedented step of denying the minority party's picks. Did anybody know about this? By the way, I'll say good for Poynter for actually bringing this up. I knew this. I don't think a lot of people knew the degree to which this is a political sham of a committee. So arguably doesn't even respect its own criteria, but most people don't know the extent of the politics behind it. It's actually kind of fascinating. Oh, but Pelosi had one last move. She proceeded to name the 2 Republicans who had voted to establish the committee, Cheney and Kinzinger. Anybody who's seen their testimony knows. I know what rhino means in theory, Republicans in name only. Cheney. Enough said. As members, joining 7 Democrats. So, by the way, this produced a committee that was bipartisan. Can you appreciate the lies? This produced a committee that was bipartisan. The speaker, the leader there, Pelosi, appoints the opposition, the bipartisan aspects, doesn't meet the required threshold for a number of committee members, and then Poynter says it's a bipartisan committee. It's a bipartisan committee wherein one side of the political aspect of it appointed their opposition. We have investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing. We have appointed our own opposition and now claim to be a bipartisan committee, but excluded lawmakers who Democrats believed could be tempted to use the panel as a platform to justify the actions of Trump and his allies rather than investigate them. And how about if the other people are just using this platform to politically weaponize it instead of to investigate how such a thing occurred? Unbelievable. Okay, in a lawsuit, the Republican National Committee argued that there were several problems with the formation of the committee. First, rather than 13 members, as set out in the resolution, the panel ended with only 9. Second, the panel had no ranking member, as has been called for in the resolution. And third, Republicans on the committee were not ones recommended by the Republican leader, McCarthy. On May 1st, U.S. District Court ruled that none of these concerns were enough to stop the committee's work. It didn't declare, as far as I understand, it didn't declare the committee lawful. And I believe, and I hope I'm not wrong, that question is still in the air, if not on appeal, at least on final adjudication, I think, because being told you can continue with the committee's work does not validate the committee itself. Let me just see if we go on with this. And if anybody in the chat knows, let me know. The ruling was made by Timothy J. Kelly, a Trump appointee. Kelly wrote that concern over the numerical divergence was not an unreasonable position, but he added that the court must give great weight to the House's own actions, including 2 occasions in which House Republicans failed to challenge the committee's underlying legitimacy before casting votes related to the committee. The House has also argued that there's precedent for a committee with incomplete membership. Okay. As for the question of the ranking member, that's less of interest to me. This ruling says they can continue with their work. I don't believe it confirmed the validity of the committee itself. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, well, whatever. Let's see here. Another broad complaint of the lawsuit is that the committee's actions are not advancing a valid legislative purpose. Okay. Sometimes I know things that I don't even know that I know. But yeah, this argument didn't fly with Kelly either, who noted the committee's purpose was to investigate if legislation is necessary to avert a future Can you appreciate what this means? Trump appointee or not, can you appreciate what this means? The committee can now be justified to determine if future legislation might be necessary to do something. There will never be any committee ever formed in the absence of any current legislative purpose for which this argument cannot be made and cannot plausibly be made and argued. They need to see, we need to investigate to see if there's anything legislative that comes about this. That basically applies to anything and everything government could ever be involved in. Kelly's decision was in line with an earlier decision of the circuit. Okay, yada, yada, yada. In December, a three-judge panel ruled against Trump's attempt to block National Archives. Yada, yada, yada. The appeals, hold on, is this the appeals? Okay, so it was in line with an earlier decision. Has this one been appealed? This is in the previous case. We don't care about that. Further bolstering the House's case, the Supreme Court denied a motion by Trump to overturn the appeals court decision. So is there an appeal currently pending of Judge Kelly's decision? The collective result of these court decisions, Robinault said, is to show that the committee was properly authorized and that Congress has the power to investigate for valid legislative purposes. Wow, way to whitewash what we all knew. We all knew that already. Let me just see. Timothy J. Kelly. Let's just see something here. Just want to see if this decision is under appeal. Timothy J. Kelly, appeal Jan 6 committee. Chat probably has already answered the question. May 23rd. Let's see this. Select committee effort to obtain. Okay, so this is a different. I don't know. I'll ask someone else who knows. I won't be able to find that out in real time. So that's the Poynter. Poynter suggesting that this committee is totally fine, despite the fact that it does not meet the shall number, because at one point in the past something else similar happened. It's valid because although it doesn't address a current legislative issue, it's prospective. It might need to be done in order to determine if in the future some legislation is necessary. Like what legislation could be necessary in the future that doesn't already exist when 500 people have been charged with crimes? Existing legislation. It's preposterous. So that's that. I mean, it has been authorized to continue its investigative work. And we'll see if at the end of the day, this committee is held to be lawfully created and legally compliant.